The chantry teaches us that it is the hubris of men which brought the Darkspawn into our world. The mages had sought to usurp heaven, but instead, they destroyed it.
Hi there, it's your girl Awkward Artemis here. I'm gonna be talking about Dragon Age lore again. In this video, we'll be discussing the story behind the Maker. Why did he seemingly abandon the world? What does this all have to do with spirits, demons, and magic as discussed so freely within the game? All these questions will be talked about and more. Special shout out to the Dragon Age wiki page for making codex entries so much easier to access when I'm making these videos. Be sure to click that subscribe if you're enjoying what you see. Now, on with the big daddy. I mean, the Maker. I'm going to begin with the Maker by talking about the codex entry. I'm going to read the codex entry first, and then I'll talk about it. The Maker. There was no word for heaven or for earth, for sea or for sky. All that existed was silence. Then the voice of the Maker rang out. The first word, his word, became all that might be. Dream and idea, hope and fear, endless possibilities. And from that it made his firstborn. He said to them, "In my image I forge you. To you I give dominion over all that exists. By your will may all things be done." Then in the center of heaven he called forth a city with towers of gold, streets with music for cobblestones and banners which flew without wind. There he dwelled, waiting to see the wonders his children would create. The children of the Maker gathered before his throne, and they sang hymns of praise unending, but their songs were the songs of the cobblestones. They shone with the golden light reflected from the Maker's throne. They held forth the banners that flew on their own. And the voice of the Maker shook the Fade, saying, "In my image I have wrought my firstborn. You've been given dominion over all that exists. By your will all things are done, yet you do nothing. The realm I've given you is formless. It's ever-changing." And he knew he had wrought amiss. So the Maker turned from his firstborn and took from the Fade a measure of its living flesh and placed it apart from the spirits and spoke to it, saying, "Here I decree opposition in all things, for earth, sky, for winter, summer, for darkness, light. By my will alone is balance sundered. The world is given new life. And no longer was it formless, ever-changing, but held fast, immutable, with words for heaven and for earth, sea and sky. At last did the Maker from the living world make men, immutable as the substance of the earth, with souls made of dream and idea, hope and fear, endless possibility. Then the Maker said, "To you, my secondborn, I grant this gift. In your heart shall burn an unquenchable flame, all-consuming and never satisfied. From the Fade I crafted you, and to the Fade you shall return each night in your dreams, that you may always remember me." And the Maker sealed the gates of the Golden City, and there he dwelled, waiting to see the wonders his children would create. The Maker is the central pantheon within the lore of Dragon Age Origins. Although there are other gods and goddesses within the game, such as with elven lore, the Maker is the one that's known for creating the world as we know it. So, what were his motivations? Some would say boredom or a need for creativity. After all, he turned away from his first creation, the spirits of the Fade, due to their lack of soul and fire for passion. This is what ultimately drove some of the spirits to develop such negative attitude towards the humanoid creatures of physical reality. In this mistake, perhaps the Maker realized that in order to create more driven children, a separation must be made. He created the veil in order to devise a barrier between him and his children. The physical world was so much different than the home of the Fade. You can no longer imagine things into creation. People needed to survive, eat, and toil. It was only in the slumber of rest that his children were able to truly return home. Some years after the birth of the second children, there still existed spirits in the Fade that wished ill will upon men. Why should the second-born get the love of the Maker? You know, Daddy doesn't love me. The spirits felt hatred towards the children as well as the Maker that turned his back upon them. These old spirits began to whisper in the hearts of men while they slept, telling them of the golden city while also deceiving man into believing that the old spirits were the true gods of power. Eventually, some men would summon these old spirits into our world across the veil, an act that was titled the Original Sin. These old gods appeared to us as winged dragons. We began to worship them instead of the beloved Father. These old spirits were eventually imprisoned by the Maker, who would choose to turn his back on his second children now too. What grief and despair the Maker must have felt on this day. He abandoned his firstborn because of a lack of drive and passion. And he turned away from the secondborn because they were so driven for power that they created sin. This is when the Maker chose to lock up the golden city and walk away, leaving the golden throne empty and forsaken, seemingly for the rest of time. That is, until the second sin was born, but that's for another video. In our next video, we'll discuss spirits and demons a little bit further. Stay tuned and drop a subscribe if you like these lore videos. I'm also on Twitter, and sometimes I stream if I'm not feeling shy. So, until next time, signed Awkward Artie. What grief and despair the